Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome. This evening, it's Friday, and we are in day 5 of the ITF community program. It's going to be an exciting evening tonight, coming to the end of the week before we head into the weekend. We're going to be looking at a very hot topic known as talent identification. And its interest will definitely draw quite a lot of questions, which we'll be ready to take on. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Radkar to bring this session forward to all of you, and he will be joined by Pooja and myself, who might come in between. So please get ready. Dr. Radkar, the show is all yours. I'm going to draw the slides right up. And let's go.
All right, here we go. So we'll try and keep this informal, like last time. Three of us will jump in and take different points. Any point you have a question, just raise your hand or post one in the chat. Again, this topic is very, very important. So just to get an idea, how many people here know what talent identification is, and what are we talking about? The first thought that comes into your mind is
Kaustubh, you are on mute.
and I kept blabbering. All right, so here we go. Thanks, Pooja. So obviously there's a formal way that talent identification is done, and it's going to be very difficult to explain that in a one and a half hour session, but we'll try and give you the tools. So let's go to the topic overview. Let's discuss what's going to happen. That's my slide. Next one. All right, so what are we going to discuss today? So we'll discuss some aspects, obviously, physical maturity, anthropometry, the physiological attributes, the environment in which talent breaks, and then obviously some of the movement skills for triathlon. I know in the past 2 sessions, you've learned about the swim, bike, run, and transitions. We'll discuss a little bit of those, plus some locomotive aspects. So when we talk about physical maturity, what do you think are we discussing? What kind of skills do we look for in triathletes? And just the first thought that comes into your mind. No one? Wait, quiet group today. Usually you're on the fastest finger. Muscles built up, okay. We'll discuss this. It's a good one, Kranti. Audio not clear, Eugene?
Maybe if you switch off your video,
Video.
it might be a little
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Okay, I think it's clear.
All right, development, good to go. There's been a couple of good ones. All right, so we'll divide them into 4 components. We're looking at, in the physical section, still voice not clear, or it's
Now it's okay. Now it's okay.
okay. All right, so so guys, it's raining in Pune, so I have to keep switching between Wi-Fi and data. So we'll compartmentalize it to 4 groups. The physical groups is where we define the motor skills, your gross and fine motor skills. The psychological ones are ones we really need to hone on, which is having self-confidence, ability to problem solve. Can anyone give me an example where triathletes may have this, they have to use this attribute? When are we looking to problem solve? Either during a workout or during a race, especially. Yeah, fix the bike in a race, boxed in during a race, great. 2 good options. How about nutrition? What happens if you stick? Is that an important one? Yeah, very good. If caught in a net and stung by a jellyfish, I've been there. Obviously, it involves some abstract thinking as well. Keep in mind that these things we can especially for bike fixing skills. Athletes learn how to fix punctures, what to do in case their saddle falls, what to do in case the chain falls. So you do not leave those for race day. And the emotional ones are operations for your teamwork. Although triathlon is an individual sport, barring the relays, we still have coaches, we still have muscle therapists, physiotherapists. So there's a lot of teamwork. Someone give me an example of interactive skills that we need to develop as triathletes. Anyone? Okay, during group coaching. Okay, yeah, coming forward, leading social interactions. Very good. All right, and the last one obviously is this. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just hop in to help some of you, because you might not be able to come up with some of the interactive skills. For those of you who are coaches here or are aspiring elite athletes, you need to be able to communicate with athletes from other countries in a race. This happens predominantly on the bike. What you watch in the videos with them cycling is with nice music and a commentary talking around. What happens exactly on the bike is there's a lot of screaming and shouting at one another, not in a bashful way, but it's basically communication between the athletes from different countries trying to work together or improve the quality of work on the bike so that they can reach usually the chase pack or the lead pack. So those of you, once again, who are athletes, it's very, very important skill to be able to make friends from other countries and as well be able to communicate well with them. So that's something you might want to think about. Okay, so I know it's not so common in the age group races, but it's very much required in elite races. That's why sometimes if you know Spanish when you're racing in Europe, or French, it's going to be quite useful as well. Yeah, doctor, please carry on. You might have dropped off. Okay, sorry, I think Dr. Rekam have fallen off. I'll just help him to complete this part. So I mentioned about interactive skills. He mentioned about interactive skills. The last portion would be to really look at being able to collaborate as a community. So when you are looking at maturity, if a young athlete is able to look at contributing towards a particular community and working with people around him, that requires some form of social maturity as well. So if the young athlete is still very shy, is very introverted, it also means that socially he might not be ready to face the bigger world. Okay, yeah. Now, there is a portion on when we talk about measuring development. So just as a recap with Dr. Rekka's presentation on long-term athlete development, we need to take into consideration these 4 different development types. So if you are born in 1991, how old would you be right now? Someone type in the chat. If you're born in 1991, how old will you be now? 3. Wow. 30. Nice. Okay, so if it's 3, it's a math problem. All right, so 30 years old. So that would be your chronological age. Does that make sense? Okay, now being 30 years old is your chronological age. Now I'm going to draw you down to development. It doesn't mean that you are 30 years old, you might behave like a 30-year-old. Okay, so back here in Singapore, we have got men at the coffee shop or having drinks. They're 50 over years old, and they still behave like an 18-year-old when they get together. So the development age may still be lagging behind. So my wife says that men finish puberty at 45, and I think she's about right in terms of cognitive development. Okay, so get what I'm saying? So your athlete may be 15 years old, but he may still be behaving like a 12-year-old kid. That's development age, because he's still very childish. Is that clear? Can that make sense? So Kevin, same thing. So yeah, 50, 60-year-old men still talking like 18-year-old boys. So that's development age. So you agree, my wife, right? She says 45 and we all finish puberty. Okay, then there is training age. Remember, training age would be how many years an athlete has been in the training program. So if you have 12-year-olds who come to you, one has been swimming since 8 and the other only started swimming at 12. That means the one who is 8 years old has 4 years of training, and the one who's just started has less than a year of training. So this is again very important, because when we are trying to look at talent, are you actually measuring or looking at real talent, or are you measuring training? Because obviously the boy who has been swimming for 4 years would definitely be more experienced than someone who's only been training less than a year. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And the final one would be biological. So again, some youths or children develop slower and they will hit puberty at a later age. So girls generally develop a little faster, boys slightly later, but within these two gender types, not everyone develops at the same time. So some kids develop very late, some hit puberty at 15. And now in today's society, we have seen girls as young as 8, 9, starting with puberty. Okay, so oops. So I hope that gives you an idea of the difference that what Dr. Radkar mentioned previously about taking all this four into consideration. You can now consider this. Okay, Dr. Radkar, are you back in?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm back in.
Sorry,
guys.
I hijacked your slide. So back to you.
No, I lost power. Sorry, I'm very sorry. So this picture is very interesting, right? So if you if it looks like a whole bunch of triathletes, but if you start seeing the little brackets with their ages, just look at the difference, right? Just between 14 and 13, 12. Can you spot one major difference for me? So which guy is the tallest one? Yeah, 14. And you know, look at the 16-year-old, right? So he, in this picture, obviously he looks shorter than 14-year-old. So the picture basically trying to tell you that don't just go on what you see. There's a lot more that happens behind the scenes. You know, there's some parallels that I want to draw to Ironman athletes as well. So if you see some of the top women winners in
Oops, you might have fell off. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Is the rain really bad in India? I will assume so. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure what he wanted to mention about the Ironman, but I think this gives you a clear picture of what it's like to not put everybody into the same category. Now, I'm going to give you an example, hoping that he will come back in time. So one of the things you need to consider, many of you who have gone through school, obviously many of you here, or all of you have gone through school. If you look at secondary school, is that what it's called in India, Pooja? Secondary?
Yeah.
Or secondary school?
High school or
High school, yeah. So can you imagine that? Now the PE teacher has a tough job because he is taking secondary 1. Is that what it's called? Secondary 1, and he's working with 13-year-olds, and some 13-year-olds are already finished puberty. Some are still like 11-year-old. He has a huge class in school, and there are boys and girls. So if you now look back at the previous, remember this? Yes, boys and girls, 13 years old, and he has to consider all that. Now, you know what happens when the PE teacher runs a PE session? It is absolute chaos because the big boys will be much stronger than the smaller late puberty boys. The girls will be much more mature. The boys tend to be cognitively very childish. Okay, so there's always a lot of disparity between the two groups. So it's not optimal. You should know that during a PE class in school, the PE teacher has a very tough job. So, and you also realize that the quality of PE sessions all around the world is very difficult to handle. Okay, but that said, if we now look at only our sport or whatever sport you're working with, you have a smaller group now. Would you now be able to break them not just by age, but maybe consider another way to do it. Okay, so I think Dr. Radkar is back. Yep, you were talking something about the Ironman and women. Please carry on.
I think he is still having issue with the connection. You're on mute.
I hope he comes back on soon. So I'm just going to move on. Okay, so this looks really scary, guys. This is now math lesson. Okay, don't be too afraid of this. I want to bring you to this term called peak height velocity. And peak height velocity, what you need to understand is it is the period whereby the child has the fastest growth rate. Okay, so he's always growing, but we acknowledge that, but we want to look at the period where he has the most growth within the shortest possible time. That is known as peak height velocity. It's a phase. Now, this peak height velocity that can take place between 1 month to a couple of months coincides with the onset of puberty. Got it? Now, I'm going to actually help you clarify this. Many people, they say, oh, the child has gone through puberty. My question to you is, how would you know? Oh, because I think so. So there is actually a scientific way to acknowledge that child has begun puberty. And this is through establishing, it can be evasive or non-evasive, this period in the child's life known as peak height velocity. If you remember what Dr. Radkar mentioned as well previously in LTAD, we also spoke about that when a girl has a menstruation cycle, it already means her peak height velocity has finished. So you are actually a little bit late in the game. So when a girl starts her menstruation, she has already completed her peak height velocity. So I hope this gives you a good indicator. The question will be now, so what when we know what is peak height velocity? We know that in the LTAD phase, once puberty has occurred, the training adaptations can also change accordingly. And very quickly, just to help you recap, remember, endurance can now start beginning to come in. You can start strength training programs for girls, 12 to 18 months after that for boys. Okay, and they are basically transiting. Good, cool. Since Dr. Radkar is back, I'm going to just bring him back to the previous slide. He wanted to say something about the Ironman women.
Yeah, so sorry again. So if you look at Ironman women champions in the past 10 years, especially in the female side of things, what are the names that come in? If you were to compare a Daniela Reef to Anne Hogg, or a Daniela Reef to a Miranda Carfrae, what is the biggest characteristic that stands out? I think I'm showing my age. Experience, not so much. I mean, both are equally experienced, but if we were to look at them, we're looking more at the physical characteristics here. Skill. Okay. Who's taller? Is Daniela Reef taller or Miranda Carfrae taller? Okay, so I'll give you the answer. Obviously, Miranda Carfrae or Anne Hogg are much shorter than Daniela Reef, correct? So don't always go by someone's height. That's the point I'm trying to make, okay? It doesn't matter how young, how old. We'll cover this later. There's no such thing as a perfect height or weight. So Eugene was talking about peak height velocity. So there's a formula that we have given, and it's a very interesting formula where we look at your age. That's the first thing, which is calculated in months. You got the standing height, and keep in mind it is standing height. That's in centimeters. Again, be very, very
So I'll help him continue because he might got hung. So it's standing height in cm, sitting height in centimeters as well. You take the leg length by taking the standing height minusing sitting height. Okay, yeah. So you take the standing height and you minus sitting height. Why? With that difference, you will know what the leg length is. You also want to take into consideration body weight in kg. Okay, so what comes to your mind right now might be, so what do I do with peak height velocity? Peak height velocity will help you establish when the guy or the child has established puberty itself. All right, cool. So, Dr. Radkar, hop in when you're ready.
So this, again, we covered this a little bit in the past session where we discussed, what ages we see males and females adapt to obviously speed, strength, endurance. So on the bottom, you'll have the chronological age, and then you see, they'll hit puberty at different age groups, obviously women between 11 to 13, and then men typically around that 13 to 15 mark. What we're trying to show is, when you start building training patterns for young adults, young kids, keep these things in mind. Don't try and push them in something they're not going to be ready for. For example, 10 to 12-year-olds, be very, very careful what strength training you will apply to them. You don't want to have full-blown strength training for them yet because they're just not going to be ready till puberty hits. Pooja, any point you want to make?
No, I'm good. It's just that when it comes to female, be careful about their cycles also, because like pre-menstruation, they go from a lot. So coaches has to take care of those things and be sensitive about those particular points also.
Yeah, and Indian females culturally are very shy to discuss this. So have a good real communication with the parents as well, especially about the girls, so that the parents may actually tell you what is happening at home. Understand that we only see our athletes 1 to 2 hours on a day, but parents are with them 24/7. So especially with females at that young age, given the culture we are in, we have to be very, very sensitive. Okay, so this is very, very interesting picture, and Eugene's put this from the 2018 Buenos Aires Olympic Games. So if you see Henri Graf, really tall, well built as compared to Eger Belindo. But what do you see in the two women? Are they almost similar in height, or is there a distinct difference like the two males here?
Apart from height, you can also look, especially for guys, the features of the face. You can still tell Igor is a bit boyish, and Henry, yes, he's still young, but it's more of a mature man's face. You can tell
More
that.
mature.
Yeah, the ladies as well. One is Emily is really young looking. Yep, and Marie is you can tell it's more like a lady, full-grown woman in that sense of face. But yet at the same time, they are all Just to let you know, Youth Olympic Games, it's not by nomination, it's by qualification. So they're all on the same standard. So these are the best guys from their countries. Okay.
Yeah. So let's discuss a couple, some ethical and sensitivity issues that can come up. Obviously, dealing with young adults, dealing with parents, we have to be extra sensitive on the tests we can do. Obviously, if you start getting into invasive methods, we are going to have issues. So how many people here have had their body fat checked with calipers? Has anyone had that? No one? Okay, so then maybe that's the first step we all should have as homework. That's a very, very simple skin fold where there's a lot of pinching that happens. And it used to be one of the gold standard of measuring body fat. Just imagine someone pulling your skin and try doing that to a 8 to 12-year-old. Obviously, they are not going to be as comfortable in someone pulling and pinching them. So keep that in mind, that when we do testing with them, try to keep them as less invasive as possible. Obviously, understand that any measurements, any testing you want to do, anyone under the ages of 16, you need a parent to sign off on. It could be a simple physical test, or as simple as a sit and reach, or simple as a sit-up or a push-up test. You need parental consent to take care of it. Just a couple practical things to take care of. First things first, the development of programs is going to take into consideration a lot of different things, especially the maturity of both actually the coach and the athlete is very, very important. Just don't start just because we've done this great program for you. Don't start creating tests and programs. Really understand what goes into it before creating, and then the first question ask yourself is, how is this going to be of any use to both me and the athletes and the parents? Be very, very careful with classification. Just because there's constant peer pressure at that age group as well, and there will be comparisons that the kids will make, which will lead to different issues, emotional issues, sensitivity issues, both with the kids among themselves and with the parents as well. Obviously, in India especially, we use physical education classes in school as a bare measure to have evaluations, but keep in mind that's not necessarily the right way. A lot of times that will result in poor poor statistics for you, which can lead to us coaches making really poor decisions. Third thing is that don't ever discard any athlete just because they are fully developed, or you don't feel they're mature enough. Give them, if someone's really committed, someone's really hardworking, disciplined, just give them the support, and you will see the magic that happens. I'm a great example personally of this, that at 12 to 14 I was much slimmer, much shorter than my peers, just that I was willing to work hard than anyone else in the room. And by the time 14, 15 came, sure enough, although I didn't really catch up with them in height and weight, I could keep up with them, even the best of the best swimmers in India. So just because someone you feel is not really developed, don't ever discard them. Rather, be more sensitive towards them and give them the support they need. Obviously, we discussed anatomical age and biological age. Again, keep in mind that anatomical age is just a straightforward number. Biological age is really something that happens on the inside, and it's a very invisible thing. Last but not least, especially in India, a lot of parents put ample pressure on their kids, especially those key areas or key years. 8, 9, 10 standard is when kids are now forced into coaching classes along with school, etc. So it's important at that age, we as coaches provide them support and help them in really push their skills in sport up a notch. Pooja, your experience with this?
Yeah, so basically I have seen there is this 2 times in the entire career of any athlete where due to peer pressure or due to pressure from the family, they leave. And that is once when they are switching to secondary, once they finish their primary. That's one major period when I have seen most of athletes leave their sports because of the studies that they want to focus on. And the other one is when they get into colleges. So that's like you said, like somewhere between 10th standard to the college entry. Most of the athletes come out, but this two are the crucial period when you should be sensitive, when parents should be more sensitive towards it. Of course, if you can pass this particular 2 periods, if you could encourage your kids to go through these 2 periods, they are gonna be those world-class athletes that we are looking at. So in India, it's still the same. You still push your kids for studies, but I personally would suggest give them a chance, because kids are very good at balancing studies and sports both. It's just that they need your support, being coach or a family member or parents, whatever.
Perfect. And it's always a balance that we can find, that when the last 2 months where studies take up, you can keep your training to a bare minimal, and then as soon as exams are done, give them a little break and they can jump right back in, because they're not probably going to lose anything if they just stay in shape or stay connected to the sport in one way or another.
Yeah, because over here I would like to share my personal experience. Like, I won maximum national and international medals when I was in my 10th and 12th standard. And of course, the only time I got to study was just before 1 month of my examination, and still I could succeed with distinction marks, right? So it's when your kid is in sports, he knows how to focus more and how to use those time to do good in their studies also. So give them that opportunity rather than pulling them out.
Thanks, guys. I think that was great sharing. So I'm just going to input. This is for everybody. I've been very well exposed globally, as much as I'm still Asian. And I think one thing we need to recognize, regardless whether you're Indian or you're Asian, the Asians have a very strong culture of paying a lot of attention to school and career. And we need to acknowledge it, that is, even with ITF, that's something we need to acknowledge, because it's very hard to replicate in a European mindset, whereby if the kid is good enough, he just drops everything and he just turns professional. Not to forget that triathlon in Europe can make a decent salary compared to, say, in India, whereby I would say right now it's very difficult to make a real salary professionally, just from sponsorship alone, because sport is not mature enough. Yeah. Don't take into consideration. Yes, I know that Indian athletes do come from the military service as well, so that's fortunate. But if you're talking about purely professional, yeah, it's something which is you have to acknowledge it. So I think moving forward, if once we acknowledge this entire process, then the coach and the support system needs to find a way to integrate this in. I'll give you another limitation. So back home from where I am in Singapore, we face a huge problem. So it took me 10 years to develop 9 boys over 10 years. Everyone, 7 out of 9 made it to the national team. And we were ranked top 20 in Asian Cups and whatsoever. And in Singapore, we have a conscripted military service. So every boy has to go for military service at the age of 18 or 19. And so overnight, we went from 9 to 0. No man left on the team. And it's very difficult to come back after 2 years because these boys were now in university and they need to actually acknowledge that if I don't make sure that I clear my school, I'm going to lose another 2 more years or something else. So I know it's not the same problems in India, but I think what we have done is you really need to try to embrace this as a culture. And that's something food for thought, which I think Dr. Radkar and Pooja has actually mentioned. And I hope you guys can find a solution together. Okay, cool.
All right.
Next one.
Yes. Again, the next one, it's one of my favorite ones, anthropometry. Unfortunately, not utilized as much in India yet. So hoping we start inculcating some of these. Obviously, what we want to do is not just study, but document body measurements of all your athletes. The big mistake that we make is that all the tables and all the charts are comparing our athletes with the European or Americans, and that always puts us at a big disadvantage because I mean if you see, the youth is getting stronger and taller, but right now those charts have been developed in the early 80s 90s, so we can never keep up. So we're always in the lower percentile. I know there are efforts being made to have an Indian specific chart. So use these charts very, very carefully. That's the point I'm trying to make when you start comparing our athletes to especially international athletes. Keep in mind that athletes are going to just like all of us did, we are going to express, they are going to experience body changes right through the ages, and that will keep on happening regardless how intense they're working out. That's just a natural aging phenomenon. Plus, you're going to add specific training to it, and there's nothing wrong in this. That's just how people tend to develop through childhood and through young adulthood as well. Changes are going to be different. Again, that's the point we keep on making about females. Be very, very careful and respectful. Changes are going to be different. Women will hit puberty at a young age, so you will see that rapid spur of growth as compared to men. So be very, very careful dealing with that. It's very important that we understand these changes because obviously, like we have shown in multiple charts now, they can have a direct influence on athletes' performance as well. So you have to be careful. Not, again, like I gave the example, don't push them in strength because their body and muscles is just not ready. So keep in mind the small charts. They've been created for a reason. Try and start utilizing them, playing with them with your trainees. The question I want to ask some of you guys is, do you think there is a perfect body type for triathlon? No? Okay. And why do you say no? If you were to look at all 4 of these guys, okay, not perfect, but ideal. Can you explain more to me in ideal? And then Eugene will jump in and explain this picture for you. Ectomorphic, okay. Athletic body, all right. Lower body fat percentage. Eugene, you want to jump in and tell them about the picture?
Okay, so some of you might recognize them, some of you might not over the last couple of days. So we have two men and two women here. I'm going to go from left to right. Left is Mario Mola from Spain, and then we have Christian Bonnefil from Norway. So these are the two guys who physically look very different. Mola is very small build, but he's pretty tall. Not basketball tall, but he's fairly all right. Then we have Christian, who is many people mistake that he looks a little bit stout or pudgy, but in actual fact, his girth of his circumference of his waist looks big. It's primarily because he has a humongous rib cage and he has a very large diaphragm. And so when he breathes, it seems like his belly is sticking, but actually he's very, very lean, but he just looks big. Okay. One fun fact about Christian, he was actually born with a defect. So one of his rib cage actually has a missing rib, and it's on his left. And very interestingly, his left lung and his heart is actually larger than someone appropriate to his height and weight. So what has happened is his body actually adapted to the extra cavity size, and so he has actually a larger heart and a slightly larger left lung, which obviously explains for his high number, huge VO2 max. Okay, so watch out for both of these guys in the upcoming Olympics. Very interesting guys. Then we have on the right two ladies, Katie Zafiris and Gwen Jorgensen. So Gwen has retired from triathlon. She was a Rio Olympic Games gold medalist. Some of those of you who were here on the other evening, you watched her run. So Gwen is really, really lean, and I would say almost skinny-like. And Katie is very muscular for a lady. If you've seen her, yeah. And both of these women are pretty tall as well. So back to Dr. Radkar's point. Is there actually a perfect body type of triathlon? I'm going to leave it to you to decide. All right. Nice.
All right, so let's take a look at a few more pictures. Obviously, Jan Frodeno is going to have a really smashing weekend. Looks like he's getting set for the tri battle. But look at the guy in front of him. So just compare, their heights 1.94 to 1.78. Javier Gomez, I believe, is going for his fourth Olympics. He's only 38 years young. Third Olympics, sorry. He's only 38 years young, so someone to watch out for at Tokyo as well. Vincent Luis is, definitely a top contender for at least one of the medals, 1.77. Compare that to one of the females, Cassandra Burgard, again, another great athlete, 1.77. Alistair Brownlee is somewhere in between, Jan Frodeno and Javier Gomez. So obviously, we tend to think that, that's the point I made previously as well, that we tend to think that the taller athletes will have a distinct advantage. Not so much. There is always going to be exceptionals to all these rules. When you start talent identification, we are not really looking for basketball level athletes necessarily as well, unless someone is really good. So keep in mind that athletes will come in all sides of shapes, be very, very adaptive to that.
Just a fun
obviously,
fact. I just have a fun fact, guys. Sorry to interrupt you. So Jan Frodeno is 194 and he's Olympic gold medalist. His wife, Emma Snowsill, is also Olympic gold medalist, and she's really small. Yeah, she's really small.
Yeah, I mean, I think Flora Duffy is 1.64. Again, she could be a top contender for the medal this time around. So again, like I said, you just have to keep and watch and just make sure your athletes are training hard enough, regardless of whatever shape and size they are in. And the next picture is Eugene's favorite. one of Eugene's favorite. Again, he's here with Katie Zafaris, Cassandra Bogard, and Ashley Gentle. I believe all three of them are going to the Olympics again this year. 2 Australians and 1 American. And Eugene, you want to make a point about this picture?
No, I'm just giving you a real comparison that the women tend to be polished compared to this guy. So this guy who's my friend, he's standing at 6 foot. He's a 6-footer, and Cassandra is tall. She surprised me. Yeah, yeah, she's hunching over here, but I was surprised she was that tall. Yeah, so don't really see that in over the videos, because what you realize is at the end of the day, a lot of them are of that height. Yeah, so they don't look that tall in person. Yeah, Pooja, have you met any of them in person? I think Ashley, you've seen her in person. Like she wasn't so tall back then. Yeah.
Ashley and Katie both.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Ashley. So if those of you who were in Chennai last year, you saw Barbara Ravados. Barbara Ravados is also this will be her 3rd Olympic Games. She raced in Chennai, and she's a small lady. Yeah, she won the race last year. Okay, so have fun. That's this guy's 1 minute of fame. Thank you.
So the next chart is again something I was telling you. Shows the anthropometric profile. Keep in mind, like I said, these are international charts. So if you just for a fun fact, start comparing how your athletes and stand up in different categories, and more than likely our Indian seniors are probably going to be compared with the junior category. The way it's going was most, I think the average height in India is about 5'4", 5'5", 5'3" to 5'2" for women, and then about 5'8", 5'9" for men, and that's what the junior category average is internationally. So just something to keep in mind. Again, this will definitely not just translate to performance. When it comes to body composition, there's not much difference in female juniors to senior females. When puberty plays menstrual play a big role in this. As a natural rule, higher percentage impact on running performance. But again, how low do you want to go? There's a lot of controversy surrounding this. Just throw something at you. There's a great podcast by Sarah Hall's husband. I just lost his name. Ryan Hall, where he discusses his weight as a marathon runner, and when he was the lightest, he actually did not run as fast when he actually had some muscle on him. So something to ponder. If you have spare time, please listen to that podcast. Body composition again. Fat mass can have negative impact for both swimming and running. But what do you see in triathletes, where they mostly have larger muscles, obviously more so because of the training metrics they're using. Obviously, they are going to have great muscle strength, and just the training volume and intensity is such, plus you're dealing with 3 different sports. They will have lower body fat as compared to female triathletes. Junior males, we may think that they have not reached full physical maturity, but like the older picture Eugene showed, where the 14-year-old was amongst the tallest as compared to the 16-year-old. So they can display characteristics of senior male triathletes. Just keep in mind they're still not fully developed yet. Again, this is very, very important, especially dealing with young adults and parents and coaches. Be very, very careful how hard you push your athletes. You don't want to break them down every single session. You have to keep in mind that the athlete's health is of prime importance first. If they're healthy, obviously performance will follow. I talked about this, that we have to be careful when we're dealing with body composition, especially in today's social media age. There's constant peer pressure, especially amongst athletes, amongst parents. So be very, very careful in the way you approach these ticky-tacky subjects. And this leads right into it, that avoid focusing on body weight. We have to be very, very careful, especially with females, that you do not throw body weight in the mix. Eugene, I think you just typed something in. Do you want to say a word?
Yeah, with this current generation of many people being on social media, I think there's a greater pressure placed upon young athletes because of how people perceive the way they look. So that's something you need to be very careful with. I'm just going to share very quickly my personal experience over the last 2 decades. I would say 40%, 30% to almost 40 of elite female athletes have some degree of eating disorder. That is a very high percentage, and as much as most of them were very lean, they tend to have some degree of, as I said, eating disorder, whereby they are pressured to always maintain that physique, and people tend to say, "Oh, she didn't perform because she put on weight. Her hips are too heavy and stuff." So be very careful the words you use. Obviously, body composition will be one of a huge factor towards performance. And let's say if that athlete eventually cannot reach the performance standards, I think there is more to sport than just winning medals. There's also a toll on the psychological portion. So more so when you're working with a young athlete, if that young athlete obviously will not make it, I think treasure that journey and try to keep them still at least at a recreational level, because coaches, sometimes our words are too insensitive and it can be very damaging long term. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Right, so how do we apply this? Keep in mind that these characteristics have been determined as one of the factors that influence sporting success. Obviously, keep in mind there's plenty other factors that will determine this success as well. Like we asked, there is no clear pattern that will determine performance, especially in racing or competition. But some of the components are usually visible in most of the elites that we see. Again, height, body mass, and percent of body fat will have direct influence on performance, especially as identified swimming and running. Again, weight gain or loss in females, keep in mind, could be the result related to their menstrual cycle, menstrual function. And just most importantly, keep looking at the stages of development chart. Try to understand it as much as possible. Again, keep in mind there are going to be exceptions to the rule, so be very, very sensitive with that. So next, we'll talk about the physiological attributes, and I think most people here in this room will know these, or at least some of these. Your basic smart watches, your coaches, any reading you do will talk about the exercise economy. They will talk about the energy expenditure. Obviously, functional threshold power is critical on the bike. Anaerobic capacity, again, on the swim and the run, easiest way to measure. Anaerobic power, another great test. VO2 max is a very, very interesting dynamic. I think it seems to be like the most talked about phenomenon in Indian athletes these days. Every other day on social media, I see athletes posting their VO2 max based on the smartwatches they wear. Keep in mind that that's just an algorithm the watch is throwing at you. If you really want you to max, you will have to go into a lab, put a mask on face, and then give 100% effort on a treadmill, where gradually the hill level is going to go up. So I'm not going to go too deep into all of these attributes. I think most of you should know them. Again, we can measure your athlete's fitness. We can do assessments. And again, simple way of doing it. CSS is your critical swim speed. I think we usually do 50, 100, 200 time trials. Very few times I see athletes doing 400 and 1,000 meter time trials. So you're going up to Olympic distance, and once a while you may have to test test their skills at a 1,500 as well. Cycling, like I said, the most common is the FTP test, usually done every 12 to 14 weeks, based on what stage your athlete is in. The AIS power profiling test is another important one. In terms of running, I think most athletes will do either the 400 or the 1K or the 2.4 kilometer test. That's one of the most common ones. Very few athletes do land up doing a 5 kilometer or a 10 kilometer time trial. Just keep in mind that the running time trials, especially a 5K or a 10K, if your athlete does give 100% effort, it's going to take them some time to recover. So build that rest and recovery in the schedule if you do have them doing a 5 or 10K time trial. The other one is the 6-minute map test. Not as frequently used in India, but a good one. The one I see the least used, strangely, is the one for mobility and stability. So your functional movement screening test, very important for balance and coordination, but unfortunately, it just doesn't get utilized as much.
So just quickly to add on what Dr. Radkar mentioned. So he dropped some really good hints, and this is what the rest of the world with world-class athletes are using. So I think it's really to look at how we can utilize what some of the best practices are going on, whether it's around the other parts of the world or with the European programs. Take note that as much as some of us may not be familiar with these testing protocols, it's very important that we adapt to change. So you can't be doing stuff back what people were doing in the 80s or 90s, because the year is now 2021, and many things have changed. Okay, so great tips from Dr. Radkar. So, and I think he's the best person to, when he says that functional movement screen coming from his own background is important, and it's and not many people are looking at it, so it's a huge gap. Yeah.
Again, like Eugene said, there are new tests that keep coming up. The Cooper test is a great test. Again, it's not mentioned here, but just because it's not mentioned here doesn't mean you can use it. It will give you a baseline to see where your athletes are. So the world keeps changing at a fast pace. There's developments in the athletic side of things on a very fast pace as well. So we have to adapt. That's the point we're trying to make. Again, we all know the physiological demands with triathlons. We know the factors that will both, have a positive performance and a negative performance. Priority for coaches obviously is to identify strengths and weaknesses of your athletes, and then not just identify them, actually work on them. And I will give you an example which just happened with me a couple of weeks back, that I was doing the not just in Pune or Maharashtra, but obviously in India. If you're training for an Olympic triathlon, at which discipline do you think you will put in the maximum amount of mileage? The swim, the bike, or the run? The bike, yeah, very good. And so I'll give you an example that I was talking to this group, and a couple of guys were just burnt out, I could tell. And they just said, look, we're not getting enough time on the bike. And I asked them why. And you will not believe that they were swimming anywhere between 40 to 50 kilometers in a week. Whereas when you looked at their bike miles, it was barely 100 to 120 kilometers. That itself is a big problem, right? If you were to compare, it's a 1,500-meter swim and a 40-kilometer cycle. So no wonder they were feeling that their performance on the bike is not optimal. So identify your strengths and weaknesses of both you and some of you maybe athletes, and obviously of the athletes you coach, and then keep working, keep honing on the skills, but be very, very practical in your approach as well. Brick workouts are great. One brick workout a week is recommended. I know a lot of coaches will put a small brick workout in the middle of the week as well. That's a great way to practice your transition skills as well. Assessments, very important, so that you see, are you progressing in the right way? How frequently do you think we should do assessments? Just the ballpark, on any athlete, regardless of the age, how frequently do you think we should do assessments?
Sorry, Dr. Radkar fell off the cliff again. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it depends on where you come in, guys. I think for assessments, it can be as close as 6 weeks and up. It can also end a phase. So whatever you decide to choose, I think the assessments need to come with an objective. And the objective of the assessments will obviously be to address what you want to test and find out. So that's something very, very important. Okay. Dr. Radkar, hop in once you think.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Did anyone give an answer to my question? How frequently should we do these assessments?
Yeah, some said 8 to 10 weeks, end of a cycle, end of a training cycle.
Yeah, 8 to 12 weeks is usually a good time frame, gives you enough room to make adjustments and changes as well. The next one is one of the most important ones that I think we will talk about this evening, is the environment. The
Sorry,
environmental factor.
I think, to interrupt you, there was a question on the MAP test, right? Okay, so the MAP is actually the maximum aerobic speed test. So there's a question asking about the validity. Now, the 6-minute MAP or MAS test is basically where you get the runner to run at his maximum pace for 6 minutes, and you measure the distance. So it's actually a cross between the Cooper test and 2.4. Now, how accurate it is fairly accurate. It will help you to determine, because there's a lot of data out there based on how much distance you can cover over 6 minutes, which should give you a rough estimate of a predicted VO2 max. Okay. Now, it's a very good question. Again, there are many assessments out there. I would not say that one is better than the other. It really depends on many factors, given that, I'll give you some examples. One, do you have a proper running track? If you don't, then maybe the MAS test may work, because you just run as hard as you can for 6 minutes and take the distance. Now, if I have access to a track, I might just do a Cooper test, or I might just do a 2.4 test. Okay. Another thing to help you consider is the ease of implementing the test. Now, as a coach, you want data and information accurate, but at the same time, it has to be easy to implement. Now, I believe in all your secondary schools, the schools still utilize a 2.4 test. Correct? Am I wrong? In India, do they still run a 2.4? Every secondary school kid has to run that. Now, If one day you are in school in a PE program and you have a kid who runs 8 minutes 10 seconds for 2.4 with no background in sport whatsoever, it does not take a PhD sports scientist to tell you that that boy has a huge VO2 max. Okay, that's something. I have seen boys who have run under 8 minutes, and if you ask them what they did for training, or I just played catching and I climbed some trees and that's all I did. So that's the validity. No, sorry, that's the ease of putting in a test. Okay, so I hope that gives you some ideas. There is no perfect test, but make sure once you select a particular assessment, try to always utilize the same assessment and make sure that you have data. Sorry, I'm speaking too much, but there's a very good thing which Dr. Radkar mentioned. Because all of you are now here and we have a strong team in ITF, I think it's also very good to start building a database. If every coach in India can provide a 2.4 time of the guys who are in their triathlon development program, after 5 years, you would probably have a database of 200,000, I don't know, people. And then you know what's the top end range or the median or the mean. Okay, so some ideas. Thank you for the question. I'm going to just bring this over to Dr. Radkar for his environment.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick parallel since cricket is so big in India. The 2 kilometer test for the fast bowlers, they have to finish 2 kilometers under 8 minutes and 15 seconds. So keep in mind that globally we may think that fast bowlers are maybe not that speedy. They still have that's a moving pace. So these tests are now becoming standard in other sports, especially cricket as well. The environment is a big one. So there's obviously a large amount of population in India. I think we all know this, but Eugene just pulled out a needle in a haystack. There's 229 million youths between the ages of 15 to 24. So talent identification may seem like an easy word. Just I don't think an entire state in India can reach 229 people to do standardized testing on them. So there are a lot of factors that will come up in identifying the right talent. Obviously, we at ITF are trying our best. It's a new committee. Obviously, Eugene has helped us quite a bit in putting this up. But there's still a little lack of communication between the state federations, and that's where a lot of talent identification actually happens. I live in Pune, but I still do not know who is the chairperson of the Pune Triathlon Association. I've never met this person. Can you imagine this? But that's the state, and we're trying to change it. We're trying to make it upwards that the districts talk to the state, and the state then naturally will talk to ITF. So it's going to be a long process. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Obviously, family support is very, very important. If you talk to any of us here, especially Pooja, Pragya, me, we are here because our family and close friends have helped us tremendously. They've been behind our backs like a strict wall to help us come to the point in life where we are right now. Finding good coaches, creating good coaches is of paramount importance because talent identification will also happen through proper coaching networks and proper coaching channels. Finances are important, although we're not looking at millions and millions of dollars. Do understand that if you want to be successful in any sport, let alone triathlon, you do need some financial support. Again, what are we looking for? Are we trying to find gifted athletes? Are we trying to find athletes who are just there but are willing to work harder than anyone else? All of this has to go hand in hand with having the right approach and the correct methods, and that's part of the reason why this course has been put together, so it can help the larger community to not just identify good athletes, but also help them reach the top in a proper manner. Pooja, you want to say anything?
Yeah, you're right. If we are looking for good athletes, then we have to start from the grassroots level. And when I say grassroots level, I mean from the schools. Like even PE teachers have to be equally interested in finding out the talent, because this is what I feel and I have experienced. Most of the good athletes that we can find are from schools. Like Eugene said, like a boy who's running with less than 8 minutes and 2.4K, you don't really have to go through any scientific research or PhD to understand that that boy can be really good, world-class athlete if get proper trained, get proper support financially from family, from coaches as well. So yeah, over here, what we need is all of us to start from a very basic level. And coaches over here, or the PE teachers who might have joined, or the other athletes, I would really, really like need your help over here. We in ITF gonna need your help to give us that good talent, to send those good talents whoever you come across.
Yeah, thanks very much. I mean, again, it ties into the next slide. Will tie into where we are in India right now. Obviously, social-cultural factors play a huge role to one, having an athlete who has access to sport, and number two, in then having them the ability to continue into sport. Obviously, the popularity of the sport triathlon is still in its I would say infancy levels in India. Yeah, we do have some good athletes, but the short distance, the Olympic distance racing still has long ways to grow. Everyone, all the triathletes, including me, actually, I'll start with myself, that we are all attracted to the Ironman and the half Ironman brand, but there's more to triathlon besides Ironman and half Ironman. Keep that in mind. Again, birthplace and development, this is where the birthplace I feel is happening. We are trying to develop a module which can then be of use to athletes maybe 5, 10, 20 years down the line. Pooja is laughing at me. Again, age is a big factor. We're trying to catch them young. Traditionally Indian triathletes are brought into the sport after they're about 25. After they're 25. Again, there's been, Pooja, you have been part of the women in triathlon. There's a big movement happening. So there's bigger changes, trying to get more women to actively participate in sport as well. Do you feel that is changing?
Yes, of course. Like since I started myself as an athlete in triathlon, I could see like it was a very small field for female. And now when I go out, I could see like tremendous difference in the number of female athletes they are participating in triathlon. And yeah, as you like just mentioned about my current project being women in triathlon. So the entire idea of this project is to give more and more opportunities to female, to show them like not just as an athlete, but as a coach, as a support staff, you can all be part of triathlon and help this entire community to build and to grow. And looking at all those leading females out there, I'm sure we are gonna get more and more females. And over here, I would definitely want to mention that, if I talk about my state, or like 2 of the female in this entire ITF development committee are from Gujarat, and I feel like really proud of that. So that's how, if one comes out, one female from your city or your state or your nation do something great at a world-class level, then you can see that flood of female would like to come and take part in that particular sport and grow. So you have to be the role model.
Yeah, someone has to set the stage on fire. So obviously the two of you are doing a great job with that. Obviously, as athletes, gold mine effect. Message from Eugene. Read this book. Obviously, although triathlon is an individual sport, like we said, it takes a village for an athlete to be successful. So parents and family play a big role in your success. Again, your peers and your social groups, who are you competing against, who are you working out with, what training group are you a part of, will also have either a positive or a negative impact. Obviously, finding the right coach or the right mentor is of prime example, especially in an upcoming and new sport like triathlon. Isn't you want to hit the next slide and the one after? One after. All right. So what are the things that we are looking at? Obviously, primary objective is to provide your athlete with the best possible factors to help them in their development. Understand that, yeah, luck plays a small role, but it plays a very, very small role. The other is going to be about your hard work, your discipline, about the quality of your training programs. So how do you plan a training program? What kind of coaching? So obviously, the better the coaching metrics, the better the coaching process, the higher chance your athlete will improve. Competition plays a vital role, especially if you want to get faster. You have to train, not just compete with people who are faster than you or at the same level that you are. Finding the right equipment, although that no longer seems to be an issue in India, that has changed in the last 5 years. Any gear that you want that's available worldwide now is readily available in India. Again, for Garmin, for example, when I first moved to India, you couldn't even buy a Garmin in India, and now almost every other athlete, if not every athlete, does have even the most basic Garmin watch. Bike trainers, another great example. Till 5 years, my first Wahoo trainer, I had to go to the US in 2014 and get it. Now you can go on any of the websites and they'll deliver a trainer to your house. Financial support, like I said, is very, very important. Yes, regardless of sport, you will need support not only for coaching, to find the right equipment, for infrastructure. Again, if you want access to a track, or if you want access to a 50-meter swimming pool, that all costs. Also, most importantly, is your nutrition, because as athlete, that's the fourth discipline, and nutrition does not come free. Especially quality nutrition does not come free. So keep that at the back of your mind. Last but not least, and again, this is very, very less utilized in India, is your sports science support, right? Having a sports biomechanic person telling you where you're going wrong, having a physiotherapist who's going to help you stay away from injuries, not just when you get injured. So doing VO2 max test, as simple as that. Very few places in India you can go into a lab where they put ECG on you and put you on a mask and make you run blown full out on a treadmill. So all of these things are slowly getting better, but we still have a long way in terms of sports science support.
I would like to add something over here when we are talking about financial support. Of course, if you are looking at competing in next Olympic or having your athlete gets into next Olympic, then you have to do at least, your athlete have to do 8 to 12 races per year, world-class races I'm talking about. And you can understand, like, traveling internationally for 8 to 12 races can have a lot of expense. So of course, without financial support, you cannot think of getting into any sport out there.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't last over a year. It lasts. So if those of you who have athletes who want to make it to Olympic Games, you have 4 years to clock anywhere between 8 to 13 races. to get enough points. And so that's over 4 years. So to be very realistic, the costs can come up to at least $500,000 US, literally, over the span of 4 years. Total cost involved. This includes training, logistics, and so many people have dreams of going to Olympic Games, but you need to understand as well the requirements, especially in our sport.
So I would like to, hop in here, and because it comes into the financial matters, the whole situation will definitely change once we start winning medals. That is something is the the most important factor for government funding. And as you know, there are many sports, almost all the Olympic sports and even Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, medal winning sports get a lot of support from the government. So we have already done our initiation with the government, and hopefully once we have events, once we identify maybe 4 male and 4 female, or maybe 6 athletes, we will be certainly sending them for international events, especially to take part in mixed relay games, or mixed relay event, or sprint distances or Olympic distances. So we'll see how much we will be able to accommodate, how many athletes will be able to accommodate until next March or April, because that's the deadline for us to submit the entries for the next Commonwealth Games and Asian Games. And once there is, if this group, whoever is going to take part, whoever gets selected and goes into the Asian Games and Commonwealth Games next year, if they finish top 6, then we have great chances of getting better funding for the upcoming seasons. So that's how each and every sport grows, each and every funding improves. So this is just to give you a little bit of confidence, and also not to scare you that you need to spend each and every single amount of money. I'm sure once you start doing well, you'll have sponsors and brands right and left to come and support you with gears and accessories and etc. That happens in every single sport. So of course, at the initial stages you need funding, but once you start putting in that effort and competing and finishing top 6 or finish podium, then you will see support from the federation plus the sports government. Over to you, Eugene.
Okay.
Thanks, Harash. Thanks for that. So I think we have a better idea now from Harash himself. There's a question that's going out from Wow. You asked that there should be a talent hunt for program for 12 plus kids, and government should provide support. I'll just give you my honest take on that. I personally would not agree for funding for 12-year-old kids for 2 reasons. Because if you look at the long-term athlete development, we are a late specialization sport. Competitive component of triathlon will only start from 16. And the attrition rate for triathlon is going to be 99%. We're talking about elite sport. So if you were to invest too early at 12, some things are going to come along. The kids will definitely be supported, but should they finish their run of puberty, they may change their minds, and the government will have wasted a whole lot of money. I'll now share with you some realistic things which some of you may wonder. So I'll give you a model in Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and some parts of Europe. Juniors are never supported. So the juniors you see are all from parental, community, or crowdfunding. They are never supported. So
maybe
Eugene,
Eugene, what I will do is I can explain you how the Indian government, sports government supports athletes. With all respect to Sports Authority of India, Ministry of Youth and Sports Affairs, the way they look at is they want the federation to look into the grassroots aspect. Okay, so which means that we need to get to some level of some level before we go and approach them for some funding. Okay. And they start supporting for funding to take part in Asian Championship, World Championships, Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, Beach Games, SAF Games, etc. Then if you have athletes who can finish top 6 or win a medal, then they start allocating a chunk of money for those athletes to start going in. For example, let's take in squash, because something which I'm also involved, where some of the players like Joshna Chinnappa, Saurav Ghoshal, who are top 15 in the world, they are given a chunk of money where they can decide what tournaments that they can take part in. But when they were maybe early, they're like in mid 30s now and still they're in top. But when they were in early 20s, they were not getting anything from government. They were spending of their own. Only when they were showing progress and starting to win medals or starting to finish top 6 or finishing in quarterfinal stages or semi-final stages, that's when government started to uplift them by giving them some funding. So that happens for every single sport. I'm just not talking only for squash, but it happens for every single sport. So the key is for us to target events where we can finish top 6. And then from there on, we have to slowly build, our reputation as a sport. Even for Kalo Games, Kalo India, that's a big platform in India where, you get noticed well in advance. But just to tell you how the Kalo India Games works is they see how many students participate in triathlon, number one. How many states? I mean, they need schools. Kalo School Games is all, Kalo India is all about schools, right? So schools, how many schools have triathletes? And at least they need, 10, 15 schools in each state. So that's when they start compete. That's when they formalize or include triathlon into Kalo India Games. So there are things like that. So we need to work. There is, as Pooja has said, as Kaustubh has said, there's a lot of effort to be done, and it's a community effort. It's not done by one person sitting in Chennai or in Surat or in Pune. There's a lot of people have to come together, understand the mechanics of how the government funding works, or even a sponsor looks at supporting an individual. We'll have to channelize our effort towards that side also. We need to keep that also in mind. Everything is a strategy. Everything is got to do with planning. And one more thing also, just wanted to quickly answer the couple of things, couple of chats mentioned. Ujjwal Sharma. So 12 plus old kids definitely won't get any support unless they are going to take part in if they are qualified to take part in an Asian Junior or an Asian Youth Championship, and if they have the potential to finish top 4, top 6, 100% they will give you support. But if you're just going to compete in Indian events, they can't. There is, as you know, India is a huge country with so many kids, and you can identify talent, but you can't support each and every talent. So that answers your question. And Kevin, to answer your question, of course, yes, we have put together a plan, and in fact, I did share a plan with you as well in terms of how we are looking at creating funds for ourselves, which could be used for development of triathlon in India. I'm just taking this opportunity and this platform to say that if you know a brand, or if you know a sponsor, or if you know a CSR body who's interested in a sport that can make a difference in the coming years, and this is a sport, please do refer to us. We will be happy to do a presentation and take it forward from there. Of course, as I said, it can come from the smallest of contributions. Can also help. If you know any talent, do help the talent, but do it in the right channel. That's the only way we can grow as a group. Over to you, Eugene. Sorry to have taken a lot of time.
I would like to add up something over here. So Harish was right about the government sponsorship. Now, if I talk about Gujarat, we already have a state level sponsorship scholarship program for athletes, and if you win medals in national level or get selected for international level, you get good help by your state government to participate in more international races, or for your they finance you for your training programs also. And I think something like this is already there in eastern states also. So you have to search for your state programs also, how your state government works, or what kind of programs they have for scholarship or sponsorship programs.
Thanks, guys. I think you got your answer. So as I was saying just now, this is not just exclusive to India. All around the world, it's the same issue. Juniors don't get a lot of support, in fact, none. And so only until you hit the international circuit and you are ranked, then that's where I think the financial support comes in. And it's pretty much similar to many other sports around the world as well. Okay, good conversation, Pooja and Harash. Thanks for fitting this on for everyone. So the rest of you, I hope you managed to get some information and that brings clarity to you as well. Okay,
Right.
Dr. Radkar, you're still there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here, fortunately. Keep in mind there's a lot of environmental factors. That's what we're trying to say. It's not just about the athlete. There's several different things. Family, friends, good coaches, good mentors that are going to help in the way the athlete develop and how long they keep up at the sport. Like I said, family and coaches will play a big role, especially when the chips are down. And as athletes, we know you will have cycles where you're doing really well, and then you'll have cycles where things don't go as well. And that's where your family and your coaches support is extremely vital. Obviously, training process, we've honed on this for quite some time, that it has to be continuously adjusted. You can't just write a training plan for 12 weeks and then not make any changes to it. It has to be, in some cases, adjusted on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis as well. Again, start asking your athletes to understand why a specific session or why a specific calendar has been created for them. Ask them to think for themselves what changes they would like to make. Don't have them make the changes, but have them discuss with you, open that line of communication. Ask them to start respecting their body, which is very, very important. If they just don't feel right, ask them to talk to you about taking an extra day or extra session to recover. Training and physiological aspects are obviously one and the same, and they are very, very relevant factors. That's part of the reason why they have been put in their own bracket. Okay, so we've covered this in my earlier talk, fundamental movement skills. Obviously, this will be a little repetitive, so we'll just rush through these. Your basic motor skills. We want to build a good foundation. We want to develop sport-specific movement. Obviously, we are looking at, although we look at triathlon as one sport, keep in mind it is 3 separate sports. So develop sport-specific movements for swim and cycle and run. Again, motor skills are going to be very, very important for the development into more specific. Again, after 14 is when the game really changes. So till that age, keep working on those gross motor skills. Physical literacy is great, although it's not much discussed in the Indian content. That's where keep a good communication line with your athletes. Talk to them about decision making. Talk to them to track their own process and their own progress. Have them list every weekly, or if possible at the end of every session, how they felt at the end of the session, what went good, what went bad. I have my, we call them goal books, right from 1995 that I have saved. And sometimes just for fun, I go back and take a look at it. And it's astonishing how much I used to write then. So it's a very, very simple thing. It can be as little as I felt really good to a deep paragraph of how they actually felt. That's a great way to get your athletes connected to their body and mind. When you look at the fundamental movement skills, again, divided into three, pretty straightforward: your locomotive skills, manipulative skills, and your stability skills. We've covered them in my earlier talk as well. Start understanding them and see how you can implement them in your training sessions, especially if you have young athletes. Remember, we want to make training sessions fun. It should not feel like a workout for them. So you can use any of these in multiple ways and create a fun, engaging session for them. Also, this is a great way to build teamwork as well. So for example, catch or kick, although not directly related to triathlon, is a great way to have some teamwork or bonding going on in young athletes. We talked about assessment. Progressive assessments are very, very important. A lot of you have given the right answer as well. Every 8 to 12 weeks, you want to see how things have been in that training cycle, what went right, what went wrong. Have a good table listed that how things are progressing, so that you can identify strengths and weaknesses and keep working on those continuously with all your athletes. The next chart looks very, very tiny. It's very, very similar to what we have seen in the past graphic as well. Shows you athletes' ages, and it's saying that you can start triathlon as early as 8, probably just 3 different sports. Just get them adaptive. The biking is going to be the one, especially in India, where you probably have the most issues. Find closed groups for kids to practice. Obviously at 8 to 10, I would say they still don't have ample balance and coordination. So you have to make sure it's safe for them to take part. Again, training structure, if you want to get into a little moderate, remember some sort of competition is established between ages 10 and 12. So a moderate structure will come somewhere in that age. After 14, when most of your athletes have hit puberty, is when you start adding more and more competitive stuff to them. So the youth triathlon will have high structure, and after 16, obviously, it's going to be a lot more specific for your athletes. Okay, we've discussed these in the last 2 sessions on the swim bike, and then the run and the transition ones. Again, although we look at triathlon as one sport, it is multidiscipline, like I said in the past. The better you are, obviously, more economical you are in each discipline, will obviously play a big role in athletes' performance. Pooja, I believe for most Indians, they are either good swimmers or good runners. It's the cycle part that somehow we haven't touched yet. And if you want to be globally competitive, understand that cycling has the biggest volume in triathlon, and you want to hit those 40, 42 kilometer per hour speeds if you want to stay in the lead bunch. Would you agree?
That would be around 50 if you're talking about world triathlon races.
Yeah, I mean, the junior levels, junior to senior levels, probably you want to.
Yeah, just to add in as well, with that discussion with both yourselves, I think for those of you out there, one of the low-hanging fruits, especially when you're trying to get people in the sport, with just start with the swim and the run. That's the best combination to draw someone in, because you don't really need a lot of equipment with that. So the bike, while they are still considering, of course, there is their consideration of equipment. Just focus on making it fun, just focus on skills. And a lot of these young athletes will also have the aerobic capacity to do fairly well in the bike. If they are good swimmer, good swim runner, the bike will be very decent if you put good skills. So because the aerobic engine is already there.
Yep. Thanks, Eugene. Obviously, again, this has been discussed. Technique of each discipline is very, very important. Start working on technique as young as 10, 11. If you have, especially in swimming, if you have the right technique, it will really go far especially if your athletes become into the competitive spheres. Lack of any of these skills will obviously have a negative impact on your athlete, obviously on the overall performance, whether it's in training or especially in racing. Just some practical points. Yes, specific skills are needed. We, as coaches or some of your athletes, it's your responsibility to work on them. Again, assess. We have spoken about assessments quite a lot in this session. It's very, very important to have those assessments. Keep in mind that all athletes will develop at their own pace and ability. So be respectful of that. Again, assessments and profiling helps us coaches create the right pathway and make sure we get optimal performance from our athletes.
So I would like to add one thing about the cycling that you were talking about. If you wish to develop cycling skill like much better way, send your athletes for the crit races, those what do you say, like road cycling races, because athletes themselves learn a lot by participating in such. So athletes learn a lot by participating in different competitions also. So crit races for cycling or road cycling races could also help you develop skills. Yeah, Kaustubh.
All right, thanks, Pooja. Yeah, very true. I think almost every city or state now does have these smaller crit or road cycling races. So start encouraging your athletes to take part. Next few slides, we are just trying to show you where the world is in terms of triathlon right now. So if you look at the 10K times, from 86 to 2016, the record is just at 29:17, set in 2016. For the men's, it's at 26:17 by Kenese Bekele. If you look specifically at triathlon, and now keep in mind this is after the swim and a bike session, the average run split was a 35, but the top 10 at the Rio Olympics ran the 10K in 31:33. And again, this is off the bike. So this is a very, very fast pace. And obviously the fastest Olympic run split was in 2012 by Alistair Brownlee, 29:07. But if you see how it compares to his 10K PB, there's not that big of a difference, right? So there's only about 35-second difference. That's an average one. So 3 seconds per kilometer slower, just probably a 10K all out on the track, as opposed to a 10K at the end of his triathlon. So that's really amazing.
And one more thing, that the timing for Rio Olympics, it was almost 35 degrees when they were running after finishing their bike and swim leg. So this 31 is in hot weather condition.
There are approximately 15 guys on a circuit who can run off the bike under 30 on a nice cool, now. Yeah, on a nice cool flat course. Most of them, 15 guys can run under 30 on a cool flat course. So yeah, and the women is a bit of a larger gap. So this year we'll see, because there hasn't been a lot of racing. So Gwen is really one of those who are in her own world. So she's going consistently 33, 32. Yeah, 32 actually. So there's something to look forward to this year. In Tokyo is going to be hot as well.
Yeah, so this shows you what happened at Rio. So look at the top three, 31:09, 31:16, fourth and fifth, we must have really pushed hard, 30:34 and 30:38. So they have the fastest 2 times. Just a snapshot for you to see where the world is, you know, and then again, you know, once we get more data on Indian triathletes, we will be able to compare it, because that's a question that's been posted below. When you look at the women, again, considering it's pretty hot, it was pretty hot in Rio, 34, 34, 34. So at least the top 6 are under 36 seconds. Again, keep in mind hot conditions after the swim and the bike. When it compares, so this is the Youth Olympics. Again, pretty fast times. Keep in mind, this is a 5K run. This is not a 10K run, so don't get confused. Still, you know, 15:33 by the second guy. That's really fast, especially after a swim and a bike. The winner had a 16:10, 16:29 for the third place guy.
So
And for the
Alexandre actually missed the swim pack. So he had a, so if you look at just 15 seconds and he missed the pack. And so he had a slower bike ride as well because the chase pack was slower. So he obviously ran much harder. So if you look at Alexandre and Andreas in number 4, they both had pretty strong runs, and they ran down the rest of them.
yeah.
So it's important to have a good swim as well. It's very important.
Good swim as well. Yeah. A good swim can set you up for a good bike, especially if you want to be in the lead pack, and that will translate to a good run. For the women, again, 17:15, fastest. There's another one who's 17:25, number 7, Emily Neuer. So she probably looks like she missed the swim pack as well. She says 10:52.
Yeah, we had a girl here. We had Emma in 11. So she was she was in the last pack. So she missed the boats. So she ran down from 37 to 11, but she's got a pretty neat run. So she ran 17:57, and I think that's fairly quick for a 16-year-old girl off the bike. Yeah. So
yeah,
the run of course is yeah.
But and Buenos Aires more than likely also was hot. Argentina is a hard place to compete in.
Hot and dry.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a little snapshot to see where the world is. Again, it will be interesting after Tokyo to see what kind of timelines we get.
No. So the question is, have any of these athletes qualified for Tokyo? No, they would still have another one more cycle. As I said, it's a long, late spot. If I bring you back to the first page over here, you're going to see that Jonathan is still around, Henry is still around, Richard is still around, Joao is still around. In fact, I would say out of the 15 guys, probably 90% of them are still here. Richard Varga did not qualify. Alistair did not qualify, but most of them are still here. So the point I'm trying to make and to answer your question is that with long-term athlete development, you wouldn't see the juniors rise up so fast. And this is a fun fact as well. Not all the champions in Youth Olympic Games actually move up to the Olympic distance. A lot of them retire. Why? Because many of them push really hard when young as well. And so it's very hard to sustain. Okay, so yeah.
There are 2 questions in the chat that I would like to answer.
Please.
So start with Yashwant. Are you talking about the overall triathlon time or just the running time of the athlete? what are the top Indian triathletes clocking right now as an average with the timing. So overall for man, it's somewhere around 2 hours to 2:05, depending on the course, of course. And for the female, it's somewhere between 2:15 to 2:25. And there's this another question. Has anyone from India been qualified for a triathlon at the Olympics? Not yet. We could only reach till Asian Games. But we would want to send our athlete in 2028. And for that, we are going to need all of you coaches out there. You have to help us create that, like get that one athlete who can represent India for Olympics. Over to you, Eugene.
I think we're on the last slide now, before we take some questions. Again, we have the ITF have had this multiple times that, you know, where is India now in the sport, and we're at an infancy level, but we aspire to take it to a really top level, first starting with the Asian Games and the Olympics, and then like Pooja said, we are setting our targets for the 2028 Olympics to have our first entrant. How do we get there? Again, it's not a simple answer. You know, your support is going to be very, very important. The ITF is now much more motivated than it has been in the past. We are going to try and do a lot of things for you. Again, you know, talent is overrated. You know, the answer is yes or no, yes and no. Having, you know, every one of us is talented, but again, we need to have hard work, a lot of discipline, obviously the leadership and the administration. So everything has to come together. Just being talented is not necessarily going to give us what we are looking for. Yeah. Yeah, and again, in India, especially, a lot of talented athletes are in sport till 10th standard, and that's about that. That's when their academic aspirations or their parents' academic aspirations come in. And Eugene's already put in that if you're looking at someone for the 2028 Olympics, that athlete is somewhere at the 8th or 9th standard right now. So between ages 14 and 17.
I would like to share something over here. We just saw Brownlee brothers. I met them for the very first time in 2009 when I went for my World Championship at Gold Coast. And you can understand, like, they were world class in 2009 and they are still working hard, and now they are in Olympics. So you can understand how many years you are going to need to reach there. So once you start, you need to understand how many years you have to invest to reach to that Olympics.
Yeah, and tying in, don't, you know, similar to that is Nicola Spirig, and she is in phenomenal form right now. She's born in 1982 and she will be competing in Tokyo. And again, she is one of the favorites for at least one of the medals. And she has been around for quite some time as well. And she still has the firepower, not only to race, but keep up with all the training after so many years. All right, guys, that's it from us. I mean, it was a really long but interesting session. So if you have any questions, although we tried to make this one interactive, we've already posted some questions that we tried to answer, but anything else?
I'm just gonna make a comment for everyone. This last 2 weeks for me, as I was working with ITF to put all this together, I revisited some old videos and current videos of India's 400-meter women's team. And I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with athletics. India does have a world-class 4x400-meter women's team, world-class. They might not finish top in Olympics, but they are still world-class. They were 5 Asian Games, and they were holding that the really solid for the runners. They outran Bahrain in the last Asian Games. And so I just want to bring you to understand about a little bit about reality, because sometimes in a very new sport like triathlon, we sometimes think that, oh, we'll never get there. But I think, as Dr. Radkar mentioned, it's really a combination of a lot of factors, and it goes beyond just talent. I recently read of another Olympic-bound athlete. She was from poverty. Do you know her name, Pooja? She's made the 4x4 mixed relay. And so these are all real stories that I think triathlon can be one of those sports as well, just like cricket and even squash, which have gone to world-class levels. It's just whether the community believes in it. So the main objective I just want to draw, because it's been a long 5 days, we're not done yet. But I just hope that you all can understand that with all this, ITF requires more than just talent. It requires everyone to be on the same page. Okay. And with that, I open this up for questions on anything. Wow, last one. When does coaches certification course start? Do I have an idea?
Harish, can I answer maybe? Where are you, Harish?
Yes.
Maybe after I take a break. After I take a break.
No, there will be a few coaching courses scheduled, but I believe Eugene, World Triathlon and Korean Triathlon Federation has jointly going to start the online certification. There is, I think it's for 2 weeks, right? Eugene?
2 weeks or 2 months, I'm not sure, man. It's something like that. It's within 2 weeks to 2 months, yeah.
Something like that. So, only online courses are being sanctioned, and I'm not really sure how the, the usual, I think, 2.5 days certification program works as of now. But we have certainly written to World Triathlon and Asian Triathlon to conduct some coaching courses and even technical official courses as well. Hopefully we'll have it scheduled. The only thing is, lot of we can't just have it for the Indians. We need to have women participation plus international participation for tutors to be scheduled. And I think there are only 2 tutors in Asia. One of them is Eugene, so we'll have to see whether Eugene can come to India. So there are so many factors to be considered before scheduling a coaching course in India. But certainly we will keep you posted if there is a slot to register for the online World Triathlon Level 1 coaching course. Yes, Mr. Rushil, Dr. Rushil, it will be listed on the calendar once we have clarity of the certification course.
Just a question of anyone coming top current timings. Okay, so if you're looking at the South Asian Games, Pooja, I think India does stand a chance today.
Yeah,
South Asian Games.
definitely.
Yeah.
For men and women, both categories, India is still on the top for South Asian. And for Asian also, we have a very good team. And we are still developing them to move further.
I just want to give you a bit of encouragement. It's going to go back to my 1.3 billion people needle in a haystack theory. So, and this is not meant to bring disappointment, but I think I had this conversation with Pooja that India is a huge country, and I'm very sure you'll be able to find one boy and one girl that can do that. Now, Singapore doesn't have an Olympian at Olympic Games for triathlon. We, however, have a total of 5 youth Olympians in the last 3 youth Olympic Games. 5. And through qualification, there are only available slots of 5 Asians for the Youth Olympic Games. My point is, I personally think that India has what it takes to at least get someone in the Youth Olympic Games, because we have a very tiny population. We have a population of 5.7 million, of which half are expats. So our actual native citizenship is actually maybe just over 3.5 million. And with that very small population, we're able to find talented youth. It does also come with good inspiration, leadership, and coaching, and combination of everything. And I hope this can be also be replicated with India. So my hope for all of you is to, after this, stay in touch with the federation. That's where the real talent identification is. Stay in touch with the federation, and when you do find talented individuals, I think everyone will chip in to try to see how that can work out for all of you. Okay? Cool. Questions? No questions? Then it is time for Achu is here. No, Achu is here. Okay. Achu is just came in. Welcome, Achu. You're just in time for the prizes. Okay. If you have questions, just go ahead. Otherwise, shall we start with the trivia?
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. True or false? First question. Anatomical age is not visible. True or false? Guys, answer the question. Don't just copy and paste. Anatomical age is not visible. Is this true or false? Chhatrapati is right. Anatomical age is visible. Biological age is not visible. I think the first person put true and everyone else listed true. The tricky one.
Pooja, next question.
Name any 2 development components.
Physical,
Yeah.
emotional. Kavish.
Eugene, your turn.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay. Spell out in full the actual. Well, that's quick, man. Okay. Spell out in full the actual terminology, the marker. Okay, the biological marker that indicates the onset of puberty. Spell out the exact. Yes, got it. Kavish, sorry. Kavish, you want to give it to him again?
Keshav.
Okay.
Keshav.
Different guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, different.
Okay,
guy.
well done. Nice. Poonam, spell it out. Nice try, Poonam. Okay, Dr. Radkar.
All right. Give me one way to measure running fitness. What test would you do? MAP6. Who said MAP6? Kavish, you have already won.
I think Poonam put map. That's good as well.
Yeah.
Poonam got
yeah.
map. Okay, Poonam. Well done. So guys, just before Pooja goes on, remember we talk about gross motor skills and fine motor skills. So to type correctly, you need fine motor skills. Speed, guys, speed. Some of you didn't do typing when you're younger. Okay, Pooja.
Okay. Name 3 fundamental movement skills. The major heading for fundamental movement skills. The major headings for fundamental movement skills, which are the 3 categories. Yes.
Agnello.
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 These are the same guys who are repeating, who are winning every day.
I think Garmin and Saucony are going to run out of prizes to give.
Okay. So I hope you guys had a good one. As we mentioned every night, what you can do for yourself is to reflect on what was the biggest learning point for you today, and hopefully something you can implement. So before we leave, maybe let's type in something in the chat box about one of the biggest takeaway for yourself very quickly. Let's just type it in, biggest takeaway. Biggest learning point for today for yourself.
Nobody learned anything today.
Assessment names. Poonam's foot.
Nice. Okay.
Good. Very important.
You need to give a prize. Then you'll most number of things you learned today, and then everyone type one prize. Yeah. Age is not only, yeah, good one. Time to beat. Okay, standards, world standards, good. Practical message, nice. Patience,
Patience.
yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Anyone found the needle? I hope you find a needle. Training and
Interactive
coaching,
skills. Good.
thank you. Yes, interactive process to qualify and represent the country. Okay, I hope it was beneficial for everyone this evening. Once again, it's been a great pleasure to have this with Dr. Radkar and Pooja, and with Harish as well. What's going to happen tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be a slightly longer one. So we have safety and welfare. It's going to be a bit of a sensitive topic. Yes, Sabda, needle and haystack. I hope we find a needle, Sabda. And we're going to cover the technical aspects of rules and regulations. So a little bit of homework for yourself. If there's something which you're not sure about, especially in terms of the rules, make sure you write it down so that you can fire it away to our team for answers rather than to just wait till the end. So make sure you get things, anything you're not clear about, write it down, and we will have a good one tomorrow evening. All right. Okay. Anything from Dr. Radkar, from yourself?
No.
Pooja?
Nothing.
All right. Otherwise, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you tomorrow at the same time. Have a great weekend in the morning and enjoy your training. And good night.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Radkar sir.